30 years old. That number was supposed to mean something. I had spent my entire 20s being the glue that held my family together, the one who showed up, paid up, and never complained. On the morning of my 30th birthday, I woke up believing that this year would be different. My phone sat silent on the nightstand. No calls, no texts, just quiet. What I discovered hours later on Facebook would shatter everything I thought I knew about the people I loved most. Before I share what happened, drop a comment and let me know where you are watching from today. If you believe families should never abandon their own, hit that like button and subscribe. What my father wrote to me publicly will make your jaw drop. My name is Mia, and I grew up in a modest neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio. Our family was not wealthy, but we were not poor either. We were somewhere in between, always stretching dollars, always making do. My father, Gerald, was 58 years old when this story took place. He had worked as a plant manager for nearly 3 decades before health issues forced him into early retirement at 53. He was a proud man, the kind who believed his opinion was the only one that mattered. Image meant everything to him. What the neighbors thought, what his old colleagues might say, how our family appeared to the outside world. Those things consumed him more than actual happiness ever did. My mother, Patricia, was 55. She had never held a job outside our home. Her entire identity revolved around being Gerald's wife and managing the household. She cooked, she cleaned, she complained. That was her routine. Every day she found something new to be unhappy about, but she never lifted a finger to change her circumstances. She simply accepted whatever my father decided and expected her daughters to fall in line. Then there was Brooke, my younger sister. She was 27, 3 years my junior, and from the moment she entered this world, she was treated like royalty. Brooke was the baby, the pretty one, the one who could charm her way out of any situation. When she failed her junior year English class, my parents blamed the teacher for having unrealistic expectations. When she totaled her first car 6 months after getting her license, they bought her a nicer replacement within the week. When her credit cards hit their limits from shopping sprees, they looked at me to solve the problem. I was 20 years old when everything changed for the first time. I had just received the news that I had been accepted to Columbia University in New York City. Full academic scholarship. It was the culmination of years of hard work, late nights studying, and dreams of a life beyond Ohio. I could still remember holding that acceptance letter, my hands trembling with excitement. 2 weeks before I was scheduled to leave, my mother collapsed at home. Emergency surgery revealed a serious condition that would require months of recovery and round-the-clock care. My father sat me down in the living room, his face grave. "Mia, your mother needs you. College will always be there. Family comes first." So I stayed. I deferred my acceptance, then eventually gave up my scholarship entirely when it became clear I could not leave. I enrolled at a local community college instead, attending classes between caring for my mother. Meanwhile, Brooke continued her social life uninterrupted, going to parties, hanging out with friends, living as if nothing had happened. When I asked why she could not help more, my parents said she was too young to handle that kind of responsibility. At 23, our father lost his job when the plant shut down permanently. Suddenly, there was no income, no savings to speak of, and a mortgage that still needed paying. Brooke was working part-time at a clothing boutique, earning barely enough to cover her gas and weekend entertainment. The weight fell on my shoulders. I took a second job. During the day, I worked as a receptionist at a dental office. At night and on weekends, I waited tables at a busy restaurant downtown. Every dollar I earned went toward keeping our family afloat. The mortgage payments, the electricity bills, the groceries, the car insurance. I paid for all of it. This went on for 2 full years until my father finally found part-time consulting work. When I turned 25, Brooke approached me with stars in her eyes and a business plan in her hands. She wanted to launch an online boutique selling trendy clothes. She had spreadsheets, projections, and endless enthusiasm. All she needed was $15,000 to get started. Against every instinct telling me to refuse, I agreed. But I was careful. I made her sign a promissory note documenting the loan and her agreement to pay it back. The business failed within 6 months. Poor planning, no marketing knowledge, and Brooke's complete lack of discipline doomed it from the start. She never repaid a single cent of that loan. When I brought it up, my mother waved her hand dismissively. "She tried her best, Mia. You cannot punish her for trying." 2 years later, Brooke called me in hysterics. She had been evicted from her apartment for failing to pay rent for 3 consecutive months. She had nowhere to go, no money saved, no plan. So I stepped in once again. I found her a new apartment, put down the security deposit myself, co-signed the lease, and paid her rent for the first 6 months. Then the 7th month. Then the 8th. Before I knew it, I had been covering her housing costs for over 2 years. Through all of this chaos, I refused to let my own ambitions die completely. I took night classes after my shifts ended, pushing through exhaustion to earn my accounting degree. I studied on my lunch breaks, completed assignments at 2 in the morning, and somehow graduated with honors. Slowly but surely, I climbed the ladder in my career. By 29, I had become the head accountant at a major construction firm. My salary was comfortable, my reputation was solid, and my future looked promising. But my bank account told a different story. Despite earning good money, I had almost nothing saved. Every extra dollar found its way to my family. $500 to my parents each month just to help out. Rent for Brooke's apartment, the car payment and insurance for the vehicle I had bought in my name but let her drive. The credit card I had added her to for emergencies, which she used for anything but emergencies. Looking back, I calculated that I had given my family over $80,000 in the past decade. $80,000. That could have been a down payment on a house, a retirement fund, a safety net for my own future. And what did I receive in return? Every year on Brooke's birthday, our parents threw elaborate parties. They invited all her friends, decorated the house, bought expensive gifts. The celebrations lasted for hours, filled with laughter and attention, and love poured onto my sister like she was the only child who mattered. My birthdays were different. If I was lucky, I received a phone call, sometimes just a text. One year they forgot entirely. When I mentioned it a week later, my mother looked surprised. "Oh, honey, you know how hectic things have been. You understand." And I did understand. I always understood. I always forgave. I always put their needs ahead of my own. As my 30th birthday approached, I allowed myself to hope. 30 felt significant, like a turning point in life. A few weeks before the date, I mentioned to my mother how much this milestone meant to me. She smiled warmly and squeezed my hand. "Of course, sweetheart. 30 is a big deal." Those words planted a seed of expectation in my heart. For the first time in years, I genuinely believed they might do something special for me. The morning of my 30th birthday arrived with sunshine streaming through my bedroom window. I reached for my phone immediately, eager to see the messages that must have arrived overnight. The screen was empty. No notifications, no missed calls, nothing. I told myself it was still early. Perhaps they were waiting until a more reasonable hour. Perhaps they wanted to call when everyone was awake and could speak together. I showered, dressed, and drove to work with a flutter of anticipation in my stomach. When I arrived at the office, my colleagues had transformed my desk into a celebration. Balloons in every color hung from the ceiling. Streamers cascaded down the walls of my cubicle. A small cake sat in the center of my desk with 30 candles waiting to be lit. They sang to me during lunch, their voices cheerful and sincere. My coworker handed me a card signed by everyone in the department. These people, some of whom I had only known for a year or two, had remembered. They had made the effort to celebrate me. By noon, my phone remained silent. No word from my family. I tried calling my mother. The phone rang 7 times before going to voicemail. I tried my father. His phone was completely off the automated message telling me the number was unavailable. I tried Brooke. The line was busy, then went to voicemail on my second attempt. Worry began to creep in alongside the disappointment. What if something terrible had happened? What if there was an emergency and they could not reach me? I sent a group text to all 3 of them. "Is everything okay? Please let me know. I am getting worried." The hours crawled by. No response came. I left work at 5:30 and stopped at a grocery store to buy myself a small meal. I was no longer in the mood to cook something elaborate for a celebration that clearly was not happening. Back at my apartment, I heated up some leftover soup, poured a glass of wine, and sat down on my couch. I opened Facebook without any particular purpose, just scrolling mindlessly to distract myself from the growing ache in my chest. Then I saw it. A post from Brooke, time-stamped just 2 hours earlier. The photo showed my entire family standing on a pristine white sand beach. Behind them, crystal clear turquoise water sparkled under a perfect blue sky. Palm trees swayed in what must have been a gentle tropical breeze. A luxurious resort sprawled in the background, all thatched roofs and infinity pools. My father stood in the center wearing a Hawaiian shirt I had never seen before, a cocktail in his hand. My mother was beside him, her face glowing with a tan, laughing at something off camera. Brooke posed in front of them in a designer bikini, her smile wide and carefree. The caption read, "A wonderful trip for a wonderful family." The geotag said, Tahiti. My heart stopped. I scrolled through more photos. There were dozens of them. My parents lounging by a pool with mountains in the distance. Brooke getting a massage at an outdoor spa. All three of them seated at a candlelit dinner table, the ocean visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. The photos spanned multiple days. They had been there since before my birthday. They had planned a trip to Tahiti. They had booked flights, packed suitcases, arranged accommodations. And they had done all of it without telling me, without inviting me, without even acknowledging that they would be gone on my 30th birthday. My hands began to shake. A cold numbness spread through my body. I kept scrolling, kept looking at their happy faces, kept reading the comments from family friends, congratulating them on such a beautiful vacation. Before I could stop myself, I typed a comment under the main photo. Just one word. Why? I hit enter and waited. The minutes stretched out like hours. 10 minutes passed. 15. Then my phone buzzed with a notification. My father had replied, publicly, for everyone on their friends list to see. We did not want to waste our time on a clown. I read those 11 words over and over. A clown. My own father, the man I had sacrificed my scholarship for, the man whose mortgage I had paid when he lost his job, had just called me a clown in front of hundreds of people. Seconds later, another notification. Brooke had added her own comment. Some people just do not fit in. Then I watched as my mother's name appeared beneath those comments. She had liked both of them. She had not defended me, had not asked Gerald to take it down, had not acknowledged that it was her eldest daughter's birthday. She simply clicked that like button, silently endorsing everything they said about me. Other people began reacting. Family friends from church liked my father's comment. A cousin I had not spoken to in years added a laughing emoji. People I had known my entire life witnessed my humiliation and said nothing in my defense. Some of them laughed. None of them questioned why I had been excluded. That night was the darkest of my entire life. I sat alone in my apartment, the lights off, tears streaming down my face until my eyes burned and swelled. I replayed every sacrifice I had made, the scholarship I gave up, the jobs I worked to pay their bills, the money I lent that was never returned, the countless times I dropped everything to solve their problems. Was this my reward, to be mocked publicly by the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally? I did not sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, asking myself what I had done to deserve this. The question echoed in the darkness until sunrise finally came. The next morning, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back at me. My eyes were swollen, my face pale, my expression hollow. But somewhere beneath the pain, something else was stirring. A feeling I had suppressed for years. Anger. I thought about my father's word. Clown. He called me a clown. But who was truly the clown in this scenario? The daughter who had given everything to her family, or the family who took and took until there was nothing left, then flew to paradise without her? I picked up my phone and returned to that Facebook post. The comments were still there, mocking me. I took a slow, steady breath and typed my reply beneath my father's insult. Surprise waiting for you. I did not elaborate. I did not explain. I simply let those 4 words hang there, then set my phone aside. That same day, I made a decision that would change everything. For the first time in a decade, I was going to put myself first. My first action was financial. I called my bank that afternoon and explained that I needed to remove my name from a joint account. This was an account I had opened with my mother years ago during her recovery, giving her access to emergency funds if she needed them. Over time, it had become her personal spending account. She used it for groceries, for clothes, for whatever she wanted, and I funded it. The bank processed my request that same day. My name was removed. Whatever balance remained was hers, but not another cent from me would ever enter that account. Next, I logged into my online banking and canceled the automatic monthly transfer of $500 that went to my parents' checking account. I had been sending that money for years, telling myself they needed it to get by. They did not need it. They had just spent thousands on a luxury vacation to Tahiti. Then I called my credit card company. 2 years prior, I had added Brooke as an authorized user on one of my accounts. It was meant for emergencies, but the statements told a different story. Spa treatments, restaurant dinners, online shopping sprees. She had been using my credit like it was her personal allowance. I canceled her access immediately. The apartment was the next item on my list. Brooke lived in a 2-bedroom unit that I had secured for her after her eviction. My name was on the lease. I paid the rent. She contributed nothing. I contacted the property management company and informed them I would not be renewing the lease when it expired at the end of the month. I requested they send official notice to the apartment giving the current occupant 30 days to vacate. Then there was the car. 3 years ago, Brooke's vehicle broke down beyond repair. She could not afford a replacement. So I bought a used Honda Civic, registered it in my name, and let her use it. I had been paying the insurance ever since. I called a towing service and arranged for the vehicle to be picked up from her apartment complex the following week. Then I contacted a local dealership about selling it. Finally, I sat down at my computer and drafted a formal letter. I addressed it to Brooke, referencing the promissory note she had signed 5 years earlier when I lent her $15,000 for her failed business. The note was legally binding. I gave her 60 days to begin making payments. If she refused or ignored the demand, I would have no choice but to pursue the matter in court. It felt strange taking these steps. A voice in the back of my mind kept whispering that I was being cruel, that family should forgive, that I was overreacting. But then I remembered those comments. Clown. Does not fit in. And the voice went quiet. The rest of that week, I focused on myself in ways I had neglected for far too long. I signed up for a membership at a fitness center near my apartment. I booked a solo trip to Hawaii for the following month, something I had always wanted to do but never allowed myself. I went shopping and bought clothes that made me feel confident instead of just presentable. I scheduled an appointment with a therapist, finally ready to unpack the years of emotional weight I had been carrying. For the first time in my adult life, I was choosing me. 2 weeks passed. I knew my family was returning from Tahiti that Saturday. I could picture them boarding their flight home, tanned and relaxed, completely oblivious to what awaited them. Brooke discovered the truth first. She arrived at her apartment late Saturday afternoon, suitcase in hand, probably expecting to collapse into bed after the long flight. Instead, she found an official notice taped to her door. 30 days to vacate. She read it twice, confusion turning to panic. She ran to the parking lot. The space where her Honda Civic always sat was empty. She pulled out her phone and tried to use her credit card to order food. Declined. My phone lit up with calls and text messages. Brooke, then my mother, then my father. Again and again. I did not answer any of them. My parents discovered the changes next. My mother checked her bank account and found that the monthly deposit she had come to expect simply was not there. She tried to access the joint account and found my name removed. She called Gerald in a panic, her voice probably shrill with disbelief. My father called me that evening. I let it ring twice before answering. Mia. His voice was sharp, angry. What exactly do you think you are doing? I kept my tone calm, almost pleasant. I am living my own life, Dad. Finally. You owe this family. The words came out like a growl. After everything we have done for you, this is how you repay us. I almost laughed at the absurdity. What have you done for me? Tell me one thing. One sacrifice any of you made for my benefit. Silence stretched across the line. He could not answer because there was no answer. That is what I thought, I said quietly. I gave you 10 years of my life. I gave up my scholarship. I paid your mortgage. I funded Brooke's entire existence. And you thanked me by flying to Tahiti without me and calling me a clown on social media. It was just a joke. His voice had lost some of its edge, uncertainty creeping in. It was not a joke to me. 3 days later, they came to my apartment, all 3 of them standing on my doorstep like strangers asking to be let in. Brooke's eyes were red and swollen from crying. My mother clutched a tissue, dabbing at her face. Even my father looked diminished, somehow smaller than the commanding figure I remembered from childhood. I opened the door but did not invite them inside. Brooke spoke first, her voice breaking. Mia, please. I have nowhere to go. I cannot afford to live on my own. You have to help me. I looked at her steadily. I do not have to do anything. My mother stepped forward, reaching for my arm. Sweetheart, this is not like you. You have always been the caring one, the generous one. We are family. That has to mean something. When was the last time any of you cared about me? I asked. When was the last time you remembered my birthday without being reminded? When was the last time you said thank you? She opened her mouth closed. It opened it again. No words came out. My father cleared his throat. Listen, maybe we made a mistake with the vacation. Maybe we should have told you. But that does not justify destroying your sister's life over it. I am not destroying anything, I replied. I am simply stopping. Stopping paying for things that are not my responsibility. Brooke is a grown woman. She can figure out how to support herself the same way I did when I was her age, except I was also supporting all of you. Brooke dropped to her knees right there on my doorstep. Please, Mia. I am begging you. I will pay you back everything. I promise. Just do not do this to me. I looked down at her, at this sister who had commented that I did not fit in, and felt something shift inside me. There was pity there, yes, but there was also clarity. You have 60 days to start making payments on the $15,000 you owe me. That is the agreement you signed, and I expect you to honor it. You have 30 days to find new housing. Those are my terms. My father made one last attempt. His voice cracked slightly as he spoke. We are family, Mia. Please. We are family. I nodded slowly. Yes, we are. And family should not abandon each other. Family should not mock each other publicly. Family should not take and take without ever giving back. I stepped back toward my door. I think it is time for all of you to leave now. I watched them walk away. Brooke was sobbing. My mother clung to my father's arm. Gerald's shoulders slumped forward in a way I had never seen before. I closed the door, pressed my back against it, and let out a long breath. My heart was racing, but beneath the anxiety was something else. Relief, freedom, peace. I had finally stood up for myself. The months that followed were a journey. Some days were harder than others. I would catch myself reaching for my phone to call my mother out of habit, then remember everything that had happened. I missed them sometimes, despite the pain they had caused. You cannot erase 30 years of memories, even the complicated ones. But I kept going. I attended therapy sessions every week, slowly unpacking the patterns that had shaped my life. I learned that I had been raised to believe my worth came from what I could provide to others. I learned that setting boundaries was not selfish but necessary for survival. I learned that I deserved to be treated with the same kindness I had always shown everyone else. I took that trip to Hawaii. I spent 7 days on the Big Island, hiking through volcanic landscapes, swimming in crystal clear waters, watching sunsets that painted the sky in colors I had never seen. I ate meals alone at restaurants without feeling lonely. I sat on the beach with a book and did not check my phone once. When I returned home, I felt different, lighter, more certain of who I was and what I wanted from life. New friendships began to form. I connected with people at the gym who shared my interests. I rekindled relationships with old friends I had pushed aside because I was always too busy handling family emergencies. I discovered that I actually enjoyed cooking when I was making meals for myself, rather than rushing to feed everyone else. Brooke moved back in with our parents. It was not easy for any of them cramped together in that house after years of having their own spaces. She took a second job and began sending me small monthly payments toward the $15,000. It would take years to repay completely, but she was honoring the agreement. That mattered. My parents sent a letter a few months after the confrontation. It was handwritten, several pages long, filled with apologies and explanations. They admitted they had taken me for granted. They acknowledged that the Tahiti comment had been cruel and indefensible. They asked for another chance. I read that letter once, then placed it in a drawer. I was not ready to respond, and I had learned that not being ready was perfectly acceptable. Forgiveness, I realized, was not something that could be rushed or demanded. It had to come in its own time if it came at all. I did not cut my family out of my life completely, but I established firm boundaries that I refused to compromise. No more money, no more dropping everything to solve their problems. No more sacrificing my own needs for people who did not appreciate the sacrifice. I loved them from a distance. I protected my peace, and slowly I healed. My 30th birthday did not turn out the way I had imagined. There was no party, no family celebration, no feeling of being cherished by the people who should have cherished me most. But that day became something more important than a party. It became the day I finally chose myself. I learned that love does not mean erasing yourself for others. I learned that boundaries are not walls, but rather gates that let you decide who deserves access to your life. I learned that the people who are supposed to love you can sometimes hurt you the deepest, and surviving that hurt is possible. And I learned that turning 30 while painful in the moment can also be the beginning of the most authentic chapter of your life. If you have ever felt invisible to the people who should see you, most clearly know that you are not alone. Your value does not depend on what you can give others. You deserve celebration. You deserve appreciation. You deserve so much more than being called a clown. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been taken for granted by your own family? What gave you the courage to finally set boundaries? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to hit that like button. It helps more than you know. Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss future stories, and share this video with anyone who might need to hear that choosing yourself is not selfish. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for being part of this community. May you always have the strength to value yourself as much as you value others, and may the people in your life recognize the gift that you are.